Hello everyone, welcome to the part 3 of ISO 14063 Environmental Communication. Today we will talk about environmental communication strategy. Before we start, let's recap what we have learned in the part 2 video of environmental communication. We learned about the definition of environmental communication policy, which is an overall intention and directions of an organization related to its environmental communication as formally expressed by the top management. Next, we also learned about how to develop the policy. There are 4 ways to develop the policies. And we also learned about the factors that need to be considered in making the policy. There are 10 factors. Now, let's move to the main topic of video today, which is environmental communication strategy. There are a few general considerations under the environmental communication strategy. The first one, organization should develop strategy to implement the environmental communication policy. Second, where the strategy includes environmental communication objectives, identification of interested parties, indication of what when it was planned to communicate, and management communications for allocations of funds. Third, the strategy also should be aligned with other elements of management systems, policies, strategies, or relevant activities. And fourth, the strategy should be approved by the top management and then used as the basis for the organization's environmental communication strategies. Next, we move to the questions should be considered in developing the environmental communication strategy. There are a few questions that we should ask before developing the environmental communication strategy are: the first one, why is the organization engaging in environmental communication and what are its purposes? Second, what are the organization's key environmental issues and impact? Third, what are the main issues to be covered, messages to be conveyed, and communication techniques, approaches, tools, and channels to be used? Fourth, how much time is needed to implement the strategy? Fifth, how will the strategy involve and coordinate the environmental managers, interested parties, individuals responsible for environmental issues, and individuals who are responsible for the organization's internal and external communications? And last, what are the local, regional, national, and international boundaries for the strategies? Next, we move to the establishment of environmental communication strategy. The first one, environmental objectives must be set first because it is useful to provide the basis for an effective environmental communication strategy. Second, an organization also should ensure it aligns with its environmental communication policy, the views of internal and external interested parties, and consistent with the environmental communications in Clause 3. And third, on setting objectives for its environmental communication activities, priorities and desired results should be considered, this to make sure that the objectives needs no further explanations that is necessary. There are also priorities that should be considered in setting objectives that includes the first one, and the environmental issues related to the organization's specific activities, products, and services. Second, complying with applicable legal requirements and with other requirements which the organization subscribes. Third, influencing public policies on the environmental issues. Fourth, providing information and encouraging understanding to interested parties about the environmental activities. Fifth, the aspect, impacts, and performance of the organizations. The others priority to be considered are meeting the environmental information expectations of the interested parties, establishing ongoing dialogue on environmental matters, minimizing internal and/or external conflicts, Improvement on the organization's credibility and reputations. Improving public knowledge and environmental image of the organization's products and services. And the last one, stimulating environmental innovations and creativity. Next, we move to the identifying interested parties. We should identify the interested parties. The first interested parties is the internal and external interested parties who have expressed an interest in its activities, products, and services. Second is the interested parties with whom it wishes to communicate to achieve the overall objectives of its environmental communication strategy. Lastly, the target group will be identified for more specific environmental communications activities. Next, we move to the examples of interested parties. A few examples of interested parties are: first, customer and consumers; next, legislators; third, suppliers, contractors, distributors; fourth, non-governmental organizations, NGOs; fifth, professionals involved in environmental issues; next, competitors; and the last one, shareholders. Next, we move on to the last slide, considering resources issues. An environmental communication strategy should consider resources issues that an organization's environmental communication activities are dependent upon available resources. Next, the environmental communication strategy should include an allocation of human, technical, and financial resources, designated responsibilities and authority, and defined actions. Next, employees' experience and trainings needs to be considered. Now, let's move on to the quiz time. Are you guys ready? The first question: what should be considered in developing the environmental communication strategy? The first one, time needed to implement the strategy. Second, the organization engaging in environmental communication. Third, the organization's key environmental issues and impact. So, the answer is all of the above. Next, we'll move to the second questions. There are a few examples of interested parties mentioned before, except the first one, customer and consumer. Next, suppliers and contractors. Next, non-governmental organizations, NGOs. Next, top management. Yes, the answer is top management. The third question, in establishing environmental communication objectives, an organization should set an environmental objectives, make sure it was aligned with the environmental communication policy, consider priority and desired results. The answer is 1, 2, and 3. Yes, that's right. That's all from us. Thank you for watching.